Final AP African American Studies course avoids some disputed topics. After political pressure and repeated revisions, the College Board has reinstated some content while steering clear of critical race theory and other ideas targeted by conservatives. What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name's Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, filming this video on December 10th, 2023, out here in Budapest, Hungary. It's been quite a year. And one of the top news stories this year was the repeated attacks on teaching Black history throughout America's high schools, middle schools, however you want to call it. Now, why is this such a controversial issue? I think the conservatives in America, people on the right, are really afraid of the younger generation becoming aware of the atrocities that happened to Black people in American history and them becoming more radicalized to cause change, something that conservatives do not want in America. As you guys know as well, I'm an English teacher, and as an educator, I take my job very seriously. And whenever I have to cover topics related to race, racism, American history, I always keep it real, and I always try to keep both sides of any point of view or issue present for my students so they can make their own decisions. I don't try to influence my students to think the way I think. I just try to be a good educator. And I think what's happening in America, a lot of educators have their hands shackled and they're not able to speak freely or truthfully about topics in American history. This article is written for the New York Times. It was written by Dana Goldstein, published on December 6th, 2023. I have not read the text before, but I will be reacting to it live as we go. The latest version of the College Board's AP African American Studies framework may not fully please its critics, either the disciplined scholars or politicians who have tried to legislate against it. The advanced placement curriculum released on Wednesday leaves out critical race theory and structural racism, which academics say are key concepts. LGBTQ issues continue to be mostly absent, except to mention that civil rights leader Bayard Rustin was gay. And despite the course's origins around the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, study of the movement is optional. So I think this is absolutely a shame that Black Lives Matter can't be included in the curriculum, not the organization, but the movement and the sentiment, because it shows a continuation of the continued fight for civil rights in America for Black Americans. LGBTQ rights, I'm not that concerned about. I don't have any comments regarding that. But I do think, again, that it's a shame that in America we have to constantly fight just to get our history recognized. Because if we were talking about the Jewish community, the Hispanic community, the Asian community, any other community in their history in America, there would not be this fight. But because what happened to us was so tragic and continues to be so tragic, people want to try to sweep it under the rug. And that's a shame. The curriculum does mention systemic oppression and systemic marginalization, ideas closely related to critical race theory and structural racism, terms that have been banned from classrooms in many states. Those concepts have origins in legal theory and refer to the idea that racism is embedded in the legal system, education system, and other institutions. We have to make this very clear because this was the conspiracy theory going around on Fox News and right-wing conservative circles. We have to make this very clear. Critical race theory was not being taught in schools. Critical race theory is a highly advanced master's level, PhD level course that only a few university students take and only very few university professors even understand or master. I do not purport to be an expert even on critical race theory, but I have heard that the main idea is that America's institutions are inherently racist because of the laws that were passed and the systemic oppression that has happened to Black people throughout the centuries of America's existence. Therefore, many of the places and spaces that we will be in interacting with the state will be inherently biased towards Black people like me. That is what I understand critical race theory to be. But that goes to show, as somebody who went to public school all my life, I don't understand critical race theory. As somebody who reads articles all day about racism, I don't understand critical race theory. So I am pretty sure the kids in high school were not being taught critical race theory. It was just a boogeyman to get the conservative, right-wing soccer moms all riled up and showing up at PTA meetings throwing a fit. Anyway, let's continue here. The course framework also reinstates the term intersectionality, the study of how racism, sexism, classism, and other forms of discrimination overlap and shape individuals' experiences of the world. And the class now requires teaching about black feminism and police violence. These are things that I think definitely need to be taught. I do think intersectionality is important because we all have multiple identities that we deal with that cause the world to interact with us in different ways. Me being a man, me being from America, me being straight, me being cisgendered, whatever, all of that stuff intersects and how the world will react to me. So it is important when we are studying black identity. So the College Board did not respond on Wednesday to questions about why some topics are excluded, but Brandy Waters, the lead author of the course framework and program manager for AP African American Studies, said in a statement, "This is the course I wish I had in high school. I hope every interested student has the opportunity to take it." I was very lucky in high school to have the opportunity to take some, college preparatory classes, honors classes, AP classes, whatever. And one of them that I took was Louisiana history. And I was very glad to be able to take it because I did learn a lot about my state. We have a lot of interesting history in Louisiana. But it was a shame that in Louisiana history class, they didn't cover stuff like the Opelousas Massacre, a video that I made on my channel a few weeks ago that everybody should check out, or all the other atrocities that happened to black people in Louisiana specifically, because that is a big part of Louisiana's history because Louisiana is about 30% black, maybe even more back in the day. You get what I'm saying? So it's a shame that a lot of times in history classes in America, they don't talk about that sort of stuff. And I'm going to talk about the consequences of that later. So, the course will launch for credit next fall and is currently being taught as a pilot program in 700 schools across 40 states. Since the College Board first officially released a curriculum in February, the class has caused no shortage of headaches for the organization. The course has been subjected to repeated revisions, tense political negotiations, and scrutiny from scholars. African American Studies is an interdisciplinary field melding history with the study of contemporary politics, culture, and law. Many of its scholars embrace activism, an orientation that has drawn harsh rebukes from conservatives. And that's the biggest problem because the conservatives hate when anybody understands American history and wants to actually try to change American society. Because you can in no way study American history and walk away from it thinking, yep, everything was a-okay and still okay now. Every country has their faults. Every country has had bad things happen in their past. Every country has a oppressed minority to some extent. But what has happened in America has left a lasting mark not only on the American people, but particularly black people across the world, because America has consistently been the most racist, the most violent nation in the world. Can it change? Yes. Do we fight and hope for a better America? Yes. But what is important, first and foremost, to make that happen is to understand our history. And conservatives are hell bent on making sure people do not read the history books. It did not help that the College Board initially concealed from scholars and the public the extent of its discussions with policymakers in Florida regarding the course's content. That state's governor, Ron DeSantis, a Republican presidential candidate, has signed multiple laws against what he sees as liberal orthodoxy in public schools. In emails and meetings with College Board staff, Florida education officials repeatedly raised concerns about specific material in the class framework, such as intersectionality. After those discussions, the board removed some of the disputed content, which did not stop Governor DeSantis from announcing he would not permit the class to be offered in Florida. Ron DeSantis is an asshole, and I hope Trump beats the hell out of him in the primary, and I hope Ron DeSantis has to crawl back into his little hole in Florida and eventually get unelected next round in the elections for governor of Florida. He's a total piece of waste of human existence, and Ron DeSantis should be ashamed of himself that he doesn't want people to learn about their history. What type of man doesn't want people to at least know about American history? If there's no harm in it, let people read the books. I thought this was a nation about freedom of speech, freedom of ideas, the ability to learn and access knowledge that in other places they ban. In China, they ban books. In Russia, they ban books. But in the freest nation in the world, they want to make sure kids don't have access to books that actually tell them about their own history. It's a shame. Then, after intense pressure from leading black study scholars, the organization said it had made mistakes in its dealings with the state and promised to revise the course yet again and to work closely with academics. The Florida Department of Education did not immediately respond Wednesday to a request for comment on the revisions. In revising the curriculum, the College Board said it was guided by subject matter experts and feedback from teachers and students. Still, the revision took place in a highly politicized environment. Dozens of Republican led states have passed laws restricting instruction on critical race theory, structural racism, and gender. The College Board did not respond to questions about whether it considered these laws in the revision process. Often, sometimes I catch myself thinking about, daydreaming about returning to America and remembering what, America felt like to some degree. But then I look at this and I turn on the news and I see that in many places across the country, there are Republican led states. The majority of states are led by conservative, right wing Republican nuts. And they are hell bent on just making life harder for the next generation. So if I ever have a child, I cannot have them going to school thinking that slavery was a good thing that happened to black people or that Jim Crow was there to make sure that, both sides of society could be protected. Things that the conservatives think, things that right wing people think are actually true in American history. That, black people had a service done to them by taking them from the jungles of Africa, or, Jim Crow was good for black people because it taught them to, stay in their own communities and create businesses and that sort of stuff. Never mind the lynchings, never mind the whippings, never mind the castrations, never mind family separation, never mind all of those horrible things that happened during Jim Crow and slavery. Let's just focus on the twisted logic that we have on painting these horrible moments in American history as white as can be. You get what I'm saying? So no, I can't imagine, going back to America, because as soon as I read these stories, it makes me happy that at least I will have the ability in my own home to teach my black ass children with my white wife about true American history. I love trolling y'all, man. I love trolling y'all. Kimberly Crenshaw, a leading black studies scholar and originator of the concept of intersectionality, said some of the board's revisions were welcome, though she said she would continue to protest the fact that structural racism and black queer studies remained sidelined. Honestly, I honestly think stuff about black queer studies and structural racism, I mean, those are deep topics that I do think deserve study and deserve to be taught, but keep that for the college level courses. Keep that, accessible for people who already have a baseline understanding of American history and black American history. Let's continue here. What should worry us all at this point is the fact that an institution as powerful and well resourced as the College Board found itself in the crosshairs of a politically motivated censorship program, she wrote in an email. Matthew Gutterall, a professor of Africana Studies at Brown University, said the new curriculum framework was modestly improved relative to past versions, but he noted what he characterized as a lack of depth on topics of political importance over the last several decades, including LGBTQ issues, mass incarceration, police violence, and poverty. Let's just get this clear. Honestly, the LGBTQ stuff should be put in another section because that is it's, there are black gay people, and I'm not one of those gay bashing, black guys that you see on the internet talking about, they're trying to brainwash our kids into becoming trans or whatever. That's not what I think at all. But what I'm saying is that if we're talking about black American history, nobody got lynched because they were gay. who Nobody who was black got lynched because they were gay. Let's make that clear, because maybe there was some, fairy back in the day who got hung up. Nobody got told they couldn't marry who they want to marry because they were gay. Nobody got told they couldn't work at a certain business or open a business or study at a certain university because they were gay. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. We need to understand why America is the way it is, and a lot of it has to do with America's inherent racism and its treatment of black Americans. LGBTQ stuff is important for black people. We have a lot of black people who have, those issues, and that's a part of their story, but it's not a part of the majority of black people's intersectionality, to use that word. Mass incarceration is important, police violence is important, and poverty is important. Not saying LGBTQ isn't important, but those things, mass incarceration, police violence, and poverty, play a bigger role in telling the story of the oppression that black people have faced in America. After the civil rights movement, the coverage gets spotty and the source material does too, he wrote in an email. The College Board began to develop the class in 2020, hoping to capture young people's interests in contemporary race issues following mass protests after the murder of George Floyd. The class was also intended to diversify the group of students who enroll in advanced placement, a longtime goal of the board. Amid the rapid decline of the SAT, the advanced placement program has become the biggest revenue generator for the College Board, a nonprofit, and African American Studies is one of several new courses it has developed in an attempt to draw new students to the program. So once again, we have to go back to the main problem, or one of the main problems of American society, is that getting an education is so goddamn expensive. I'm out here in Budapest, Hungary. I'm trying to apply to university, and it is pennies on the dollar to get the same level of education, maybe even better, here in Budapest, Hungary, than it is in the United States of America. We have so many money grabbing schemes just to defraud people of their hard earned money, just because they want to get an education. You shouldn't have to pay to take the SAT. It shouldn't, be a bill to get into advanced placement or to go to college in general. Yet and still, America continues to make it harder and harder and harder for the next generation. Biden, forgive the debt. Biden, don't just forgive the debt for the, postmen and the public school teachers. Forgive it for all Americans. Because when you're 18 years old filling out the FAFSA, you don't know what the hell it is. You just want to get into the college dorm and get some cooch, or you want to get dick down, or whatever you're into. You just want to go off campus and smoke weed with your homies. That's what you're going to college for. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. Let's keep it a buck. Now you know why I'm a bad student. Now you know why I'm a broke ass English teacher now. Now it all makes sense, right? Anyway, yeah, another thing about the civil rights era, yeah, that's the traditional way about teaching about black American history when you're in American high schools or middle schools. What they do is they say, slavery happened a long time ago. It was very bad. And then about a few hundred years later, Martin Luther King came, made everybody change their mind when he told everybody he had a dream. And now it's it. And now black people and white people are equal in America. That's how they teach it. That's literally how they teach it. Like, I can't think of one time in my high school education where I ever got true in-depth study on slavery, Jim Crow, that sort of stuff. It wasn't until I got to college and I started really, really learning that. But I started learning and studying on my own, and I'm going to cover that towards the end of the video, which is very important. Let's go ahead and continue here. The course's format also represents a shift. There will be an exam in African American Studies, but 10% of the final score will be determined by a research project on a topic students choose. In previous drafts of the course framework, the project announced for 20% of the final score. Traditionally, AP courses culminate in timed tests graded 1 to 5, in which students have had to earn 3 or better to qualify for college credit, regardless of their class performance. But given deep disparities in how low-income Black and Hispanic students perform on these tests, the board is increasingly experimenting with classes that culminate in projects or presentations. That's a shame. See, I know somebody's going to watch this video, read this text, and say, oh, look at that. Black and brown students are stupider because they're scoring lower on tests. But I think it's been proven before in various studies that a lot of the times the black and brown kids don't perform worse. It's just white kids perform outstandingly better because they have a lot more resources to get test training and prep. As an English teacher, what I do every day is prepare people for the TOEFL and the IELTS and that sort of thing. And the number one students that prepare for those tests are rich as hell. We're talking about like the top upper class of Peruvian society and Chilean society where I teach from. It's not the lower class kids or the kids I can tell or who tell me that they come from middle class backgrounds or lower class backgrounds, or adults as well who are preparing for the TOEFL and the IELTS. That's the reason why Black and Hispanic students perform, lower on those tests or that sort of thing. Going to continue here. The new AP course contains many topics that are typically absent in the American high school curriculum, ranging from the achievements of ancient African civilizations to black women's resistance to sexual violence during slavery. The final framework also adds more information on black sports figures, including the NFL quarterback Colin Kaepernick, who kneeled during the national anthem to protest police killings of black Americans. So, Dana Goldstein covers education and families for the Times. So, shout out to Dana. Good writing. So, once again, America continues to try to politicize just learning about history because America's history is very dark, gloomy, and bloody. But one thing that will not stop is people learning about history, period. I'm here on this YouTube channel right now, and you're watching this video this far on YouTube right now, and you could easily click away from my face, leave a stupid comment, whatever, say you're never going to watch my content again, or say that this was a great video, whatever, and then after that, immediately interact or watch a video about black history. And some of the content, I'm keeping it absolutely real with y'all. I'm keeping it absolutely real with y'all. And I know people don't like my opinions. But a lot of the black history content that's out here on the internet, how can I say this? It's very graphic. It's very salacious. It's meant to make people riled up in particular. And follow me here, because it might sound like I'm cooning. It might sound like I'm saying the same talking points the conservatives say about black history. But I'm going to keep it real. With the thumbnails they're using, the language they're using in some of these black history videos, they're not really trying to teach black history, but they're trying to rage bait. I'm keeping it absolutely real. If you look at some of the videos about slave breeding, if you look at some of the videos about the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade and what happened in Brazil and Haiti, the Dominican Republic, anywhere where human trafficking of black souls happened, a lot of it is based in truth. I'm not trying to minimize how bad slavery is. I don't want anybody walking away from that. But some of these people are using imagery and language and words to hype it up much, much more. And I know that might sound crazy, because how can you ever hype up something that was that horrific? If we just tell the truth about slavery, if we just tell the truth about Jim Crow, if we just tell the truth about what's happening now, it might seem outlandish or ostentatious. But I'm keeping it real with y'all. And if you don't believe me, just go type in, black history stuff. Go to the YouTube channel, Black Journals. Go to some of the other stuff out there as well. Some of the other demagogues and progenitors and propagators of, how can I say, race bait, rage bait. Don't quote me on that. And I hate the term race bait. I hate that term. But I'm trying to make a point here. I'm trying to make a point here. A lot of the times when people aren't given good information, they're easily led down rabbit holes where they can be radicalized. We have seen this happen on the far right for a long, long time. A long time. A lot of the people who are posting on 4chan all day, who are posting on 8kun all day, who are posting on Stormfront, they're not they're not master's degree having PhD level, scientists that that are out there, posting all the racist memes and stuff like that. The same thing could happen and is happening. I'm going to keep it real. Is happening right now on platforms like YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and that sort of stuff. There are a lot of black people like me, because I consume some of that content too, which is why maybe I might come across a bit turned up. A lot of that information that they're giving is based in truth. Shout out to Home Team History. Home Team History has been on YouTube for a long time, talking about black history, African history for a long time. And a lot of his content is very good. Not trying to downplay him. But there are other channels that are popping up on YouTube all the time, and I see them in my algorithms where I'm just looking at it. I'm like, where are they coming from with this, and where are their sources? Where's the information? Because so many people are putting out so much stuff trying to get clicks, likes, and attention that sometimes they're going to the extremes. And I would argue, though I have this unsubstantiated, I think sometimes they are making up stuff. Some places are making up stuff. Like, for example, recently, very recently, like in the last few years, there have been black people running around talking about, we are Native Americans. They never took us from Africa. They never took us from Africa. They lied to us and made us believe that we are not Native Americans. There are real black people right now talking about that, yeah, they're Cherokee 100%. Blacker than me. And listen, Yes, Aboriginal people across the planet do have melanated skin. We can look at the Australians, the Papua New Guineans. I went to Indonesia and I saw somebody who looked black like me, nose like me, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, he said I was Indonesian. I was born in West Papua or something like that. So yeah, those do exist, and that is possible that they did exist in the Americas. But do you think that the white supremacists back then would lie about it? Do you think that they would lie about it? Do you think that we would not be able to maintain our original language or culture if if we were native to the land? We could have easily escaped. That's what happened when the white supremacists did show up. They tried to enslave the Native Americans who were already in America, and some of them might have been black. I don't want anybody coming in here talking about that. Yes, they might have been black like me, brown like me, whatever, whatever. But it would have been impossible for us to have like 40 million African Americans today. All of us are descended from Native American stuff and stuff like that. That doesn't make sense. You get what I'm saying? And that comes from a lack of knowledge, because a lot of black people are brainwashed in American high schools to believe, whatever happened in slavery wasn't that bad. Civil rights ended it all. Now we're equal and stuff like that. But a lot of us don't accept it too. We don't accept it, and we hear stuff from our cousins. We hear stuff from our uncles. We hear stuff from Nation of Islam, Five Percenters, Moorish Science Temple, all sort of stuff. It all sort of gets mixed up in our head, and sometimes people go off on the deep end and that sort of thing. What I'm saying is, this might backfire on the conservatives and right wing America, conservative America, who wants to try to protect the next generation, or preserve the status quo by not teaching history. Because children, like in this picture right here, this girl is on her laptop, and who knows what she's looking at? She might be looking at, I don't know, somebody who claims that, black people are gods, and people should be worshiping us. And whatever you're learning in history class is not true, because we are actually gods on earth, and that sort of stuff. Now, I'm not trying to equate at all, white supremacists, nationalism with black nationalism. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying that sort of thinking is more prominent, is way more prominent than a lot of people want to think. And what we don't want is more hatred of other people. And I'm not saying black people hate white people. We don't hate white people at all. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that if kids are getting history from extreme sources, it can lead to extreme outcomes, like what we're seeing with the white supremacists. And there have been a few black men, in the last few years, who have done crazy things, like, attack police officers, uh, commit terrorist acts, that sort of stuff. I'm not going to name names, but y'all know who I'm talking about. And that is very possible in the future, especially if we continue to have police shooting us in the back, beating us up, us living at the bottom of the socio-economic ladder. If we continue to have Dylan Roofs and Buffalo mass shootings, if we continue to have events like this, there will reach a breaking point, much like in Gaza. And what needs to happen is not this blocking of history, but the mainstreaming of true American history. How horrible slavery was, how horrible Jim Crow was, how horrible America still treats black people today. Because what we don't want are kids on the internet right here, not like this white girl who was on Amazon in class, but what we don't want are kids going on YouTube or other platforms and getting their history from a broke ass English teacher in Budapest, Hungary. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, my name's Simon Hill. I hope you enjoyed this video. Shout out to all the new subs. I'm only doing new videos when I get a certain number of subscribers, and the subscriber count has been blowing up. It's actually growing up much faster than I even thought I could keep up with. So I'll probably doing another video when I hit 2,375 subs. Peace.